It's December of 2008. I had just finished a retail establishment with Bank of Albuquerque, Bank of Oklahoma, that they stopped funding me the last week of October. You know how I remember that? Because when you stop getting money, you remember friggin' everything. You remember everything. It was the last week of October, and I remember going into November, and the Bank of Albuquerque called me, and they said, look, you have to finish funding the rest of the project. Your funding is complete. Some of us have people in our lives, like my dad was one. He's just, by nature, a pessimist. I love him to death. I'm lucky I still have both my parents, but he's a pessimist. So I'm all excited. I buy this building. I'm almost done renting that thing out. And he goes, what if it doesn't all lease? What are you going to do? And I stopped for a second. I was like, I never thought about that, Dad. All right, that's not going to happen. We're going to lease this building up. And so I finished leasing the building up. 6 months later, we were full. I went and bought another building. And then every winter, I used investing in real estate as a tool. I didn't look at it as like, how do I invest in real estate, or like, how do I do this? I just bought a building every year because I had construction crews. And in the winter, our residential guys, they got slow. So what I landed up doing is I landed up coming in and just buying a building every single winter for 15 years. And I'd renovate it all through the winter when we're slow. And if I liked the building, it leased up quick, I kept it. And if it didn't, and it was really hard and problematic, I sold it. And I never really complicated it. That's what I did. And in 2002, I broke ground on my first ground-up construction on a 12,000 square foot retail center. Small. We have 5 units in it. Rented one to a Domino's Pizza. Rented another one to a beauty salon. Had a little Zumba place in there and an accounting service. And then we rented one to one of the election campaigns. And then that got leased later on to other people, right? And so I was successful building this building. At the time, we started building subdivisions and residential homes. And I went from scaling from 1 home to 2 homes to 4 homes to 12 homes. And by 2004, we were doing someplace in the neighborhood of between 60 and 70 homes a year. And we ran this course in retail development and residential development, and still running our concrete company, which we still own today, all the way up into the 2008 recession. And the 2008 recession, I learned a lot. Things changed. I almost went out of business in 2008. We got really close to losing properties, but we never lost any properties. You guys want to hear how? Real quick, guys, curious? Because it really is what set me up to what we're doing today. And in truth be told, I didn't even know at the time what a cap rate was. And at that point in time, I was probably worth someplace around $15 to $20 million in real estate assets, depending on how you valued them. And so when we started doing it in 2008, we had a real estate brokerage firm. We had a construction company. We were doing ground-up development of like 60 to 70 units a year. Plus, we were building retail centers. And then we had a lot of value-add stuff. And so what ended up happening was the retail centers, we lost 100% of all our leases. I was doing one of the biggest developments that I'd ever done. And at that time, I used to call my sweet spot 25,000 square feet. It was like a 60,000 square foot development. And there was a piece of land that I owned, and it was 4 acres. And this 4-acre piece of land, I had fully entitled it for office development. And we were going to do 36 units of office condos. And the way I would do it is my assets were all paid off. And the way I would do it was I would develop a full complex, and I would I would condo them. Just like you condo homes, I would condo them retail or office. And I would sell off 2/3 of the development, and I would keep 1/3. And the reason why is when I sold off 2/3, I could liquidate my mortgage, and I was debt-free on 1/3 of the entire development. I'd own it free and clear. So I today own over 1 million square feet of retail, and I owe $0 on any of it. It's all debt-free. I never leveraged it, and I won't leverage it because that was my protection for my retirement with my family. And so we have hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash flow from retail that I paid off all within the 2008 recession. The little bits of mortgages that we have, we paid them off through the recession through the means of buying land and just building houses. We downscaled from 70 homes a year down to 12, and we've never built more than about a dozen homes a year since then. We had kind of gotten out of the residential development game, but man, it's such a good game, and the market thrived. We're building like 4 to 6 homes a year, and we net like just shy of $300,000 a house on every single house. So I could build 4 homes a year, like with my eyes closed, and make $1 million. I mean, people think that's pretty freaking cool. Yeah. So in 2008, we had all these empty retail centers that we were building ground up, and I had this land. Now, pay attention to that 4 acres, because it's going to become very relevant in what I'm going to talk about tonight. I went through full entitlements, guys. I did land development the way I still do it today. And what we do is instead of buying the land, we just take control of the land. What I thought taking control of the land was back then with very little liability was through the means of owner financing. So when I did it through owner financing, you still have the liability because you still own the land, the property taxes, the debt service, everything. So what we changed after 2008 is we stopped buying land. We started controlling land. And so the way we did development since 2009 forward, because we got stuck with so much land and so much liability, was we started just going in and buying, getting land purchased on an option to buy it instead of buying it. And then it was subject to entitlements. And so now that's how we develop all of our real estate. And I landed up getting stuck with that 4 acres. We landed up with about $300,000 into entitlements back then. We had done water models, full architecture, full engineering. We were permit ready. So much so that we had tractors go get dropped off on the site the day we were supposed to get started. Bank of Oklahoma, which is Bank of Albuquerque, but the parent company is Bank of Oklahoma. They're pushing me to get started. It's December of 2008. I had just finished a retail establishment with Bank of Albuquerque, Bank of Oklahoma, that they stopped funding me the last week of October. You know how I remember that? Because when you stop getting money, you remember friggin' everything. You remember everything. It was the last week of October. And I remember going into November, and the Bank of Albuquerque called me, and they said, look, you have to finish funding the rest of the project. Your funding is complete. And I said, it ain't complete. We still got $350,000 in draws. And they said, no, you don't. They said, we're not going to fund the last $300,000. We want to see your leases now. So now we had to go back and get estoppel leases where we had to go back and prove that we still had the leases that we had given them when we had originally signed the loan docs. And we lost 100% of all of our leases, 100% of everybody who was going to lease because of the 2008 recession backed out of the building. So I had this big brand new building. We were $300,000 short of finishing it. I had to pony up the money. I had this other development. Bank of Oklahoma, one department's telling me they're not funding me. The other department is pushing me, telling me go, go, go. And I'm sitting back confused going, what, do I go? Do I go on this? I'm getting stopped over here. So we halted on everything. So I opened up beauty salons and put them in my buildings. I owned the beauty salons. I was my own tenant. I became the largest Subway franchisee in southern Colorado and central New Mexico from 2010 all the way to 2018. I didn't become a Subway franchisee because I wanted to make subs and become a sandwich artist. I became a Subway franchisee because I needed some shit in my store, in my buildings. Okay, so I started putting Subway stores in my buildings because I was my own tenant. And I needed a business model that would pay for I wanted the leases. So I had a business model where I started putting Subway stores in there. Then I went to Phoenix and I started buying single family homes for like $28,000, $30,000. And I was buying them sight unseen. We were renting them for $900 to $1,000 a month. And we started buying a bunch of fourplexes. I had never been in the single family game other than a couple rentals that I bought in early 1999. And so I didn't want to be in the single family game, but we were buying them for so inexpensive. It was just stupid, silly to not buy them. So we started buying them. Now, I landed up putting a portfolio together with 62 units of fourplexes and 12 single family homes. I was into the entire portfolio for under $900,000. And the way I did it was from building houses. Because through our business model, even though there was a recession, we were still selling homes.